Hello, I am Yash. I welcome you all to School from Home. In today's video, we will be getting guidance about Science 1. Science is a subject, if studied in an effective manner, helps us learn more about ourselves and the world around us. Today, we have with us Mrs. Anagha Joshi ma'am. She has been an engineer by profession, but in 2004 found her calling for teaching. From the past 16 years, she has been teaching students and guiding them for the SSC examinations. Thank you ma'am for being a part of School from Home. I request you to start the guidance lecture.
Hi guys, I'm going to talk to you about Science 1, which I think is one of the tougher topics for you to study. Most of you would have gone through at least the first 5 or 6 chapters by the time you see these videos. So I have on the board behind me the paper pattern which will give you an idea of how you need to study. You can take a look that there are 4 questions. The one critical question as far as I'm concerned is question number 1. Question number 1 is about objectives. Now these objectives where you're going to have 10 questions, each is going to be of 1 mark. Why I think it's critical is that it needs very, very little time, but it has a lot of importance. You know, when you're studying science, one thing that you can be very, very rest assured, and something which is different in science as compared to maths, is that you're going to have a lot of time for this paper. You are never going to be pressed for time. That might happen in a language paper or in a mathematics paper, but for a science paper you'll never be pressed for time. So use it to your advantage. Okay, the first 10 questions will be over within 10 minutes if you're aware of these answers. But I would call them critical because a word wrong and everything goes wrong. You're not going to get marks for it. So pay a lot of attention to this first question that you're studying. Question number 2 is going to be a 2-mark question. From here your choices start and you have plenty of choices. A word of advice on the choices, you need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And for you to know your strengths and weaknesses, you have to know the textbook like the back of your hand. Okay? Only when you know that this chapter contains this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I'm not comfortable with, can you decide what you're going to attempt. And be very careful with the choice of questions. You have to attempt 5 questions. You're easily going to have 8 sub-questions out of which you have to attempt any 5. So be very selective about what to attempt. Play to your strengths. You don't have to tell the examiner what you're not good at. Tell the examiner what you know really well. We'll come to how to write the questions a little later, but make sure that you know these out of the 10 chapters that I've written here, these 4 chapters, these 5 chapters I'm very good at. The remaining I'm going to decide. So my first advice to you would be to decide on your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so those are the 2-mark questions. Then you're going to have the 3-mark questions. Again, lots of choice. You have 8 questions out of which you have to attempt any 5. So that gives you 15 marks. But I think a crucial part of your paper and the most time-consuming part of your paper is going to be question number 3. Question number 4 is again a 5-mark question. You have to attempt 1 out of the 2 that you've been asked. It has a lot of weightage. This particular question has a lot of weightage, but it's, I think, one of the easiest questions to attempt because when, it could be, they could say, draw the structure of a DC motor and answer the following questions. So drawing a structure could be of 2 marks. Answer the following questions. What is the purpose of a commutator? You just need to answer it in 1 sentence. What is the purpose of a split ring? What is the purpose of a commutator? Give 1 point of difference between a motor and a generator. That's going to come really, really quickly. So even though this is 5 marks, it's likely to get over really fast. I think the most time-consuming question is going to be question number 3. So be very careful with this. Okay? Decide what you're going to write at the beginning. So when you get the question paper in hand, just decide, okay, I'm going to first focus on these questions, right? Coming to the chapters now, there are 10 chapters. I've written out these 10 chapters here. Why I think S1 is such a difficult subject to study. It's really, really interesting. and as a teacher, it's the most challenging subject for me to teach. That's because the concepts have to be cleared. You cannot attempt any answer by just rote learning. So you should forget about that as far as science is concerned, particularly Science 1. Out of the 10 chapters that I've written here, the 4 that I've marked with a blue dot are the chemistry chapters. So you have 6 physics chapters and you're going to have 4 chemistry chapters. Let's talk about the physics chapters first. A lot of students find gravitation to be the trickiest chapter. I'm not going to discuss each and every chapter, but I'll just give you certain examples pertaining to every chapter. I think the trickiest part in S1 seems to be numericals. And which are the chapters in which you have numericals? You're going to have it in gravitation, you're going to have it in heat, in lenses, and in refraction of light. Right? So you have the 2 chapters of light, you're going to have a little bit in current electricity and gravitation. For numericals, my suggestion is, as you're beginning a chapter, so for example, if you're studying gravitation, on the first page of your notebook, you should have all the formulae written. So if I'm studying gravitation, I'm going to say, okay, what are the formulae that I need? The 3 kinematic equations, S is equal to ut plus half at square, v square is equal to u square plus 2as, and v is equal to u plus at. Those are the 3 kinematic equations. I need to know Kepler's 3 laws, the mathematical formulae involved in Kepler's 3 laws, particularly the 3rd law, right? I need to know Newton's universal law of gravitation. The entire chapter is basically based on these 5 equations. So before you begin any chapter which has numericals, make sure that you open your notebook and first write out the formulae. As you write out the formulae, also write out the units. Make sure you know the difference between acceleration due to gravity and universal gravitational constant. You have to know the values of capital G. Another thing that I need you to take care of, read the question very carefully. Sometimes in the board exam, the examiner will tell you to take the value of small g as 10 meter per second square. You can't take it as 9.8 meter per second square because you have been doing so. So definitely read every single question twice. For numericals, don't forget to convert. I'll give you an example. When you're studying refraction of light or lenses, you have the formula, the power of a lens is 1 upon focal length. But the most important thing in that 1 upon focal length is that the focal length needs to be in meters, right? Now it would be silly of you not to convert it. You know, this is your trap. This is where the trap is set. They're going to give you the focal length in centimeters. If you don't convert it into meters, the examiner may not even check it. These are also the type of questions which are going to come in question number 1, which is why I said you have to be really, really careful. When you talk about refractive index, now it's the basic formula for refractive index would be eta is equal to, or refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first would be equal to V1 upon V2. If you make a mistake in the formula, you're not going to get any marks beyond that. So first and foremost, take care of the formulae. Now 2 chapters have difficult formulae, gravitation and current electricity. In current electricity, gravitation we've already talked about, but in current electricity, your 9th standard study becomes important. You have to know Ohm's law. You have to know that R is equal to V upon I. You have to know Joule's law, that H is equal to I square RT. You have to know the relationship between power, voltage and current, right? Then come the later formulae where electrical energy is power into time, what are the units that you're going to take care of. So all that is going to come subsequently. It would be a crime to make a mistake because you've made a mistake in the formula. My suggestion to study as far as S1 is concerned, or particularly these physics chapters, is to make sure to give yourself time to study a chapter. Often I see students needing to do it within, I want to do this chapter in 2 days. I think it's impossible. I think you need, for anything to be understood clearly and well, the most important thing is time. If there are 10 chapters and you decide to dedicate 1 week for every chapter, 10 weeks your S1 portion is going to be over. the other thing with S1, I'll come to chemistry in a bit, but just one more thing about S1. S1 is very, very conceptual. It's not something that you can study, learn by heart. Of course, there are definitions that you're going to have to learn. Electromagnetic induction has to be precise, has to be according to the words that have been given in the text. You can't write what you think of, okay? But make sure that you take help. When I say take help, I mean talk to your seniors. If you don't understand the concept, talk to them. Tell them, I haven't understood DC motor. Ask them what's the explanation for a DC generator. Okay? So take the help of your seniors, take the help of your teachers. If none of this is possible, I would like you to take the help of external sources which you're likely to get from the net. There are plenty of videos available. I can definitely recommend Khan Academy, but that becomes a very specific course. So don't be afraid to take help of whoever is available to guide you. Spend that time in understanding the concepts. Once you've understood the concepts, writing it down is just an expression. I would also lay a lot of emphasis on the language that you're using. Why language is important? Because it's an expression, right? It's an expression of what you want to write. So this is the time that you need to read a little more. Your language of expression is English because you're going to write the paper in English. So make sure you're writing or you're reading enough things which will help you to express better. If you're having a little trouble with expression, stick to the textbook. Okay? One thing, if you look at the chapters here, let me just talk a little bit about the chemistry chapters. You have 4 chemistry chapters: periodic classification, chemical reactions, metallurgy, and carbon. According to me, carbon becomes one of the toughest chapters in S1 for the simple reason, one is the length of the chapter. But I cannot stress the importance of carbon, because if you decide to go ahead with science, this is an entire subject in your 11th and 12th standard. So please give it the importance that it deserves. When you're studying a tough chapter like carbon or metallurgy for that matter, when you're studying carbon, decide to divide the chapter into smaller parts. For example, when I'm teaching, I like to divide carbon into 3 parts. The first part is up to the IUPAC naming system. Okay? Then it's going to be the chemical reactions. And third comes the polymerization part. So you structure your study according to the parts that you've divided it into. Don't try to study the whole chapter at once. Divide it into smaller sections. Also, if you look at metallurgy has a lot of reactions. So if you look at metallurgy and chemical reactions, one thing that I would really like you to do, never learn the reactions, never learn it. You have to be very clear about your concepts of valency. Once you're clear with that concept, it's easy to create the molecular formula. Once you've created the molecular formula, the only thing that remains when you're writing a reaction is balancing it well. Okay? When you're studying chemistry, I would like you to sit with a pen and paper. If it would be nice if someone could call out a reaction. For example, what happens when calcium carbonate is heated? So if someone could say that to you, you're going to say, okay, when calcium carbonate is heated, it decomposes to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide gas is going to be released. Now, there's one way to study would be to say it orally, but I would really like you to write it down on a piece of paper when you're going to say, okay, CaCO3, when it's heated. The reason is when you write it on paper, you don't forget these small things. So you write this, you're going to say the products are going to be CaO plus CO2. Any chemical reaction that you're writing, if I'm your examiner, I'm going to say, okay, this is a 2-mark chemical reaction. I would consider it incomplete if it is not followed by an explanation. So in words, you need to say when calcium carbonate is heated, and so and so. Secondly, when you're writing a chemical reaction, the reactants and the products have to be named. The catalyst, if any, has to be named. If heat is being used as a catalyst, it needs to be put here. The states need to be listed. For example, carbon dioxide is gaseous, and therefore you either show an upward going arrow or you write the state as G. any reaction which is not balanced would be marked wrong. So sometimes we feel, we've written a great paper, but why have I lost marks? You lose marks for these details, the detailing that needs to be written. Whether you're writing the names of the reactants, the products, whether you're writing the states, is your reaction balanced, and have you written an explanation, right? So for chemistry, chapters which are tougher, for example, as I said, chemical reactions, metallurgy, when you start to study a chapter, it would also help to create a framework for that chapter. What I mean is, if I'm studying chemical reactions, I'm going to make a flow chart for myself. I can't stress enough the importance of preparing your own notes. I'm okay with you studying from, books which help, for example, guides or workbooks, but that can only happen if you've finished learning your textbook. When you start studying a chapter, for example, if it's a chemical reactions chapter, what are the types of reactions? First, create a roadmap for your study. So it's going to be, okay, I'm going to study combination, it's going to be then decomposition, then it's going to be displacement, and then it's going to be double displacement. So these are the types of reactions that I have to study. In case of decomposition, what are the types? Then, okay, I have 3 types: photolytic decomposition, electrolytic decomposition, microbial decomposition, which is often missed. And then just finish that flow chart that you've created with examples. Okay, so for chemistry, definitely make sure that you're writing the reactions. There is no way you're going to remember it orally. It would be great if someone can call out that reaction and then you write it out. Okay. For periodic classification, one of the vital chapters. I think your science, everything is vital, because I'm going to say that because I'm a science teacher, and I would like to stress on the fact that whatever choice you take, whatever branch choice you take in 11th or 12th, whether you go for arts or science or commerce, I think it's important to know that this develops your thinking. It's not about the subject. It's about your thought process. Are you disciplined enough to study properly? Subject is just a personal choice, right? Periodic classification, I'd like you to also make use of a lot of mnemonics. Now, when I say mnemonics, for example, if, in case of periodic classification, you should be ready with the outline of the periodic table. Now, the periodic table, 18 vertical columns, 7 horizontal rows with the lanthanides and actinides. If I'm to study the second, someone says, I need you to remember the elements of group 1. So the elements of group 1 would be, I'm just going to make use here. You have hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. Okay. Now these are your elements of group 1. How do I remember that? Well, make a sentence. Make a sentence for yourself. It may be nonsensical. In fact, nonsensical sentences stick. So you could say hydrogen, of course we know, group 1, period 1, but you could say, okay, Leena ki rabdi, sasti or fresh, right, which allows you to remember this forever. You won't forget it till you're 50 or 60 when you have to teach your grandchildren this, right? So make tools which are going to help you. Draw plenty of flow charts. Numericals, don't forget to write the formulae first. Reactions, write out the reactions. When you're studying something like a DC motor or a DC generator, you know what definitely helps? If I'm trying to study a DC motor, I'm going to say, okay, use what I'm trying to get to you is use pen and paper. Don't do it orally. You should have your notebook in front of you. So if this is your North Pole and your South Pole, if I'm going to study the construction of a motor, okay, I have my conductor right here. I have my axle which is drawn here. I have my split rings which are connected. The carbon brushes which are going to be connected here. So I just join this and I connect it to my external circuit. So once I'm done with the figure, the explanation becomes really easy. The understanding of how it works becomes really easy. Work on figures, work on diagrams, okay? I think I've talked to you about how I would like you to study the various topics of S1. Don't be scared of the chapters that you have. Give them time. It's not going to come in a day. Take help. take help from people who are ready to help you and who have the knowledge. Don't look for ready-made answers because there are none. Remember, the 10th is just the starting step to your further study. And remember what I've said, it's your thought that needs to be developed. It will help you in all your other subjects as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure every student who is watching this video will definitely study science in an effective manner and ace the board exams. If you like this video, do let us know in the comment section below. If you want to see more videos from this series, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you find this video beneficial for yourself, do share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to check out the interview series called Unwrapped, which is also out on our YouTube channel. If you want to contact Anagha ma'am, her contact details are given in the description box below. If you want to contact us, our contact details are also given in the description box below. Thank you.